Hello everyone, welcome to my channel in All Seasons Homestead. So I know a lot of videos I have are about thrifting and antiquing, but this is what I do with most of my life. This is how my kitchen looks during the summer, full of produce. And I'm usually in the garden at this time of year doing lots of garden work, weeding, harvesting. So I just thought I'd make a video of what I usually do in my time, at least in my summertime. So please join me today as I harvest and I preserve and I do some canning. This area right here is my tomatoes. I think I planted, I'm kind of forgetting now, maybe 80 plants of tomatoes. I usually do 90. I think I cut back a little bit this year, but this is my first harvest. So I'm just getting everything that is red, whether it's a cherry tomato, grape tomato, Roma. I'm trying to can some sauce, so I'm grabbing whatever is ready, and it's been a little tricky this year. At first, my tomato plants were absolutely beautiful and gorgeous, but we've had so much rain that I've been dealing with some funguses, and a lot of tomatoes split and got bad. So I'm just trying to preserve as much as possible. And here is another rainy day. So I'm just going to do some canning while it's raining and storming. I feel like I've actually been pruning back my tomato plants and spraying them with a fungicide more hours than actually harvesting and preserving. I know that I like to get about 80 quarts of tomato sauce put up every year, but it looks like this year is going to be a little slow. I think I've only done 27 pints of tomato sauce total so far, and that's not even including salsa. But I mean, I'm just going to do my very best and preserve as much as I can. So here I'm just going to do some tomato sauce. And over the years, I have done tomato sauce so many different ways. And last year, I really felt like I found the simplest, quickest way. So what I do is I put as many tomatoes as possible fitting in my big crock pot, and I will cook them overnight until they're very, very soft. And then I will blend them in the blender and then put them back in the crock pot and continue to cook them down. And in the past, I've done so many ways of peeling them, heating them up and putting them in cold water and taking the peel off, or putting them through the Victoria mill and all these things. But this is my favorite way. I feel like the peels are so soft that you hardly know that they're there, and the sauce is very, very thick. And plus, it's a big time saver. So that's what I'm going for the past couple of years, is a time saver and thick sauce. And after the second harvest of tomatoes, I've noticed that I barely have any flowers on my plants. So I'm just going to try to get the very best thick sauce that I can in case I don't get another harvest. Here I am getting some cucumbers ready, and I'm just going to ferment a couple of quart jars of pickles. Mainly because this was my first harvest and I don't have enough really to can. And also I already have an entire pantry full of pickles still from last year. Some of them turned out a little squishy. I would really like to do another round of pickles to get them crunchier. But like I said, since I only have a few, I'm just going to ferment a couple of jars of cucumbers. And I did some dill, garlic, bay, celery seed, and I think I put 2 tablespoons of salt per quart. And then I let it sit on my counter for about 5 days before I ate one, and they were pretty good. They're crunchy, but this was maybe last week ago that I did this. Since then, I've had probably a good couple of bushels of cucumbers. I almost said tomatoes, but cucumbers. And we've been eating them in salads and fresh eating them different ways. And then I sold some to the country market. I actually sold them about a bushel's worth. What I do to prepare the cucumbers is I wash them really good, I cut off the ends, I slice them down the middle, and then I pack them in a regular mouth jar because I do not have fermenting weights right now, and the little shoulder of the regular mouth jars kind of keeps the pickles underneath the water. It works really, really good. And I had a whole area of fresh dill, and I did not do a very good job of preserving my dill this year. I think I got maybe one bundle, and that's what I'm using today is dried dill. But I meant to preserve all of that dill and then put it in jars for the whole winter. But here it is hanging up, and so that's just what I'm going to use for now. I did a great job weeding it and planting it, and it also just seeds everywhere by itself, and I dug it up and I replanted it and I watered it. I did everything great. I just kind of forgot to harvest it. Next up, I'm going to can some jalapenos. I loved pickled jalapenos. It's one of my favorite things to garnish my food with. I love the taste of pickles, cucumber pickles and then jalapeno pickles. It's something about the vinegar and the salt, but with the jalapenos, it's spice. I love spicy things. So they're pretty simple to prepare. The one thing I forgot to do was last year, I'm certain that I had a recipe of the ratio of water to vinegar, and I think it was 2-to-1 ratio, but I could not find that recipe and I wanted to be certain, so I just went with the classic 1-to-1 water to vinegar. And so what I do is I like jalapenos sliced, and I like them in little circles. I like them whole, so I will just do a variety of different ways. So by this point, we've had plenty of fresh jalapenos to make salsa and eat with dinner, but this is my first little basket to be able to can some. So what I'm doing is I'm sorting out the medium-sized jalapenos and then the giant jalapenos. And the big Goliath jalapenos are just so big that you can stuff it with cheese, and that's what we like to do. We stuff it with cheese and we wrap it with bacon. So in that little metal bowl, that's where I put the Goliath jalapenos, and then so the medium size and kind of regular size jalapenos is what I'm going to wash and prepare to can. Next up, I get my jars ready. I just wash them in hot soapy water, and then I'll set them to the side of the sink while I get my peppers prepared. And also on the stove, I have the brine going. Like I said, I do the 1-to-1 vinegar and water ratio. My husband eats a little bit of the pickled jalapenos. He prefers his right out of the garden, crunchy and spicy. I don't really care for fresh jalapenos that much. Like I said, I like them pickled, I like them sauteed, I like them in salsa, I like them grilled. I just like them with other flavor and a softer texture, which is weird because, I like everything else right out of the garden and crunchy. But here is my brine. And all I do is heat that up to a boil, and it takes a while, so I have plenty of time to prepare my jalapenos, and I'll show you in just a minute what I do for them. Last year, I did a really good job of also freezing jalapenos. I don't remember how many, but so many bags of jalapenos frozen. And what I like to do with those is when I'm making a fresh salsa, I just take them out of the bag and I put them in the pot with the tomatoes or tomatillos or whatever kind of salsa we're making. And I did not have to buy any store-bought jalapenos. Actually, I haven't bought store-bought jalapenos for years because my plants always produce so much, and I still have leftover bags in the freezer. And I was thinking about actually giving them to the chickens and then restocking the freezer with fresh jalapenos, but I'm actually going to hold on to them for a while longer because, like I said, we've had so much rain that I've already lost several plants. They got a fungus on the bottom part of the plant, so I'm going to hold on to them until I get like a huge crop, just to be on the safe side. But I have sold, I think, maybe half a bushel of jalapenos to the same country store. So right here, this is what I do with the jalapenos. I will slice them. If they're really big, I'll slice them down a couple of times to get four pieces out of one jalapeno. And then if they're a medium-sized jalapeno, I will put a little X in the top, and just right at the top, close to the stem, I'll cut an X in there, and then I will put the pepper in the jar whole, and then when I fill it with the brine, and as it processes, and as it sits in the pantry, it just soaks up all of that brine and has a really nice spicy pickled flavor. It just enters inside of the jalapeno, and I think that's kind of my go-to. I really like the whole jalapenos for most of my food. The reason I'm tilting my jars sideways also, if you're wondering, is because if the jar is empty and I'm putting the first couple in there, they just fall over, and then you have to pick the jar up and situate them for the next jalapeno. So I put the jar on the side and then stuff it with, maybe 3 or 4 to get it going, and that way they kind of stay in place instead of falling over. And what I use for the seasonings for my pickled jalapenos, like I said, the brine is just water and vinegar, but then I will put a garlic clove in each jar and a teaspoon of salt, more or less, to each jar, and that's all I do. And sometimes I will make another kind of pickled jalapeno where I will put onion, garlic, and carrots. I will put carrots in the jars. So I'm curious about you guys. Do you like spicy things? Do you like pickled jalapenos? Do you like salsa? Do you like salsas for chips? Just wondering what my YouTube audience thinks. Is it worth your time and effort to can spicy things? I know I have one friend, and she loves cowboy candy, and I'm not really a fan of sweet and spicy things, but I believe I tried it one time and it was pretty good, but I didn't have enough of it to really remember my opinion. But I was wondering, do you guys like anything like that? Do you like sweet and spicy maybe? I believe it was a jelly of some kind. One thing that I made last year that I'm not going to do this year, because I still have a few pints of it, but I had a orange tomato plant, or maybe 4 orange tomato plants, and I had a orange tomato jalapeno mango salsa, and it's kind of a sweet and spicy salsa, and I kind of just made that for friends and family that come over. One of my really good friends, she said she absolutely loves it. My husband kind of likes it too. He likes sweet and spicy things. I thought that I bought a orange tomato plant this year, but it turned out to be just a red plant, so either I was mistaken or maybe it's the wrong tag and the wrong plant, but that's okay because I still have a few pints from last year. One thing about jalapenos too, to can pickled jalapenos, I feel like it's so quick and easy. It's just instantly filling a jar and putting it in your pantry and knowing that you have it. It's not a lot of time and it's not a lot of hard work. I do suggest to wear rubber gloves. For several years, I did not wear rubber gloves and I was just fine. But one year, I was slicing them in little circles and my hands were on fire. And so this time, I still did not wear gloves, but I was keeping them whole or in slices, like long slices. But if you were going to really chop something up, I suggest to wear rubber gloves because, my hands burned all day long. All right, next up is my tomato sauce. And I feel like if it's already done cooking, you've done the longest, hardest part. The easy part is just to get it in the jars and to process it. And I don't do anything really special for my tomato sauce. Sometimes I will cook it with an onion, but I keep it very, very plain. That way I just have a jar of regular tomato sauce and I can turn that into 100 different recipes. I feel like if I put too many spices, then I'm limited on just that one or two recipe. So I keep it very simple and I put 1 teaspoon of salt and 2 tablespoons of vinegar per each jar. And then I will just process it in the water bath for 40 minutes for pints. All right, so I believe that this is a different day. It's after the storm. Everything is quite wet and muddy, but I just had to get out of the kitchen. So what we did was we tore down all of the first round of corn that we planted, which was a small plot. I didn't get enough to freeze, but I got enough to do a few pints of corn, canned corn. The storm also took down quite a few of our sunflower plants, so my son had a lot of fun chopping them up and pulling them down, and they weren't quite ready to go to seed, but I'm going to put them in this little planter anyway and hang it in the tree for the birds. And the goldfinches just love sunflowers, so I think that I will have a lot of goldfinches come and visit these fallen down sunflowers. Whenever they're dried out full of seeds, I have all kinds of birds come and visit them, but I'm sure that I will get plenty of sunflowers later in this season. So here's the end of a nice day's work. Not too many tomato sauces, but still I'm thankful for what I have. So on to the corn. I waited until the next day to shuck the corn and prepare it for canning. And like I said, it was a very small plot of corn. And I was actually quite nervous because I felt like I should have harvested it before the rain. I knew it was about ready, and I didn't want anything to rot or get bad because we had quite a downpour for several hours. But it turned out that they were pretty good. I did have a few dry ones and a few bad ones, but the cows just had a nice snack and the chickens had a nice snack. So again, I just had to do my best and save what I could, and they were still very sweet, very golden. So I really, really hope that our larger plot of corn is going to be good this year. It's looking beautiful so far. We did have one storm that blew a few stalks down. So that was quite nerve-wracking because last year we had a tornado maybe 30 miles from us, and in that storm it flattened almost our whole crop of corn. And with really hard work and a lot of sweat, we lifted up each stalk of corn, mounded the dirt up around the stalk, and we were able to save that whole plot of corn. And actually it turned out to be a great harvest. So I was very thankful this year that storm did not take down another crop. So after I shuck the corn and I pull off as many little, hairs or fibers, silks, whatever you call those, I clean it really good. And then today I'm just going to use my knife and I'm going to just go straight down the corn without over cutting it. You don't want to cut into the cob for canning whole corn. I do have a couple harvesting tools, and I think it's faster because you're just doing one motion down, but for some reason I was just feeling more tired in my shoulders. So even though I had to use the knife and go down, down, down over and over, I just felt more relaxed and it was not that much corn to process. So I just did the corn with a knife, the old-fashioned way, I guess. Corn is another very simple thing to can, even though it's time consuming and it's quite messy. It's just raw. If you're doing it raw pack, you just cut it and fill your jars, put your hot water and your salt, and that's all there really is to it. I'm sure there's other recipes, fancy ingredients you could put in there. But if you're just like me and you like your corn with salt and pepper and butter, or if you just want to dump it into another recipe, or if you want to dump a jar into some soup. Another thing I love to do is have quite a bit of frozen corn. So we use a lot of corn on the cob during the winter, and I'll put the whole cob in soup also. So again, I'm really hoping that our round 2 of corn does really great. I also planted some white corn also, so we can have some corn tortillas. So I hope to show you guys what that looks like also, making fresh tortillas from fresh corn or drying it and making a corn flour with it. So we will just see how the crop turns out. The process time for pints of corn is 55 minutes, so it does take quite a while by the time your water heats up and then your pressure releases and you actually start your timer, and then you got to let it cool down. I would love to get a pressure canner that's stackable, but that'll be in the future. And corn is probably the messiest vegetable of all, at least for me. And here I'm taking another break from the kitchen, and I'm going to spend, probably about 4 hours weeding my strawberry plants. My first row I just showed you was already done, and you can actually see the plant, and the other rows were violently overgrown. And this area next to my cucumbers is like a little tiny bed, and this is where I had most of my dill. And the dill was big, green, and glorious, but they died back, and so I'm just going to spend a few minutes cleaning out this little bed. I just felt the need to get my hands in dirt, take a break from the kitchen, and get some instant satisfaction because this was so quick to weed. Here is my elderberry. My oldest plants are ready first, so I got about a bushel cut and harvested from them. And then my second year plant, they are full and green, but not purple yet. So I am going to sell a few of these, but turn most of it into elderberry syrup and juice. I do like the flavor of elderberry juice if you dry the berry first, dehydrate it, and then put water with a dried berry and make the juice. I just like the flavor, and it's darker, but I can't fit all of my berries in my small dehydrator anyway. So that's why I make the fresh berry juice. And here I bought these little bags. I want to show you these because last year I had plenty of elderberries to harvest, but the birds got into so many. So right when they start turning purple or red, whatever color you want to call it, I put these little bags over it to protect it from the birds. I did buy a huge net, but then as I looked at the plant, they're about 10 foot tall. There's no way I could have gotten that net over the entire plant without getting tangled up. So that's what I came up with. I found those little fruit bags. So now I'm just going to prepare my elderberry, and I rinse it off a little bit, and I just pull off the berries. And this is probably the most time consuming part. I have in the past, last year, I put them in the freezer, I froze them, and yes, that is easier and less messy. They just pop off really quick, but for whatever reason, this is how I did it this year, and I think I just did about maybe half a bushel, and I actually sorted out the smaller red variety. I like to dry those. They have less moisture content and they dry out really easily and fast. And the other variety I have is really big and juicy. So I turn those mainly into the fresh juice to can. I have found so many recipes for elderberry juice to can it, and everyone looks like they do something different. And I also looked at my ball recipe book. So I just try to do almost 1-to-1 water and elderberry, or basically just to cover the top of the elderberry with water, and then I will cook it down for about 45 minutes. And then after that, I will strain it out. Also, I need to try to pick out as many green little berries that did not turn purple, which is kind of annoying, but it is what it is. Try to get those green little berries out, give it another rinse before you cook it. And after that, it's pretty easy. I will add lemon peel, cloves, ginger, cinnamon. If I'm making it fresh, I will also put echinacea in there just for a little bit more of immunity boost. But to can, I leave that out. So I will just cook all those flavors down. Did I say ginger also? That's a pretty big important one. I do not can it with honey though. I can it as the juice, and then when I open the jar, I add the honey later. So 1 quart can actually divide into 2 quarts depending how sweet you want it. But I want a lot of honey in there for cold season, because we're only taking 1 or 2 tablespoons at a time. So here is where some recipes tell you how much lemon juice to how much elderberry juice to use, and then other recipes say 1 to 2 tablespoons per jar. So that's just what I've always done, is go ahead and put about 2 tablespoons of lemon juice per quart, just to be on the safe side. Plus, I love the lemon flavor, and why not have a little bit more vitamin C? I realized after I strained the elderberry, mashed them out in a colander, that I had thrifted a vintage grape kind of cone shape strainer for juice. That would have worked really, really well, but I kind of forgot about it. But I think this is where I'm going to leave you guys today. Thank you so much for joining me in this week of processing and harvesting, and I hope there's more to come in the future.